Hello and welcome to episode 168 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree. That is linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. I am on Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, all of those things in one convenient location, linktree.com/GnittWitt. And you can also find this podcast, the Glitch Report podcast, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It is just out there, man. It's just like, it's there for you to listen to, for you to enjoy, for you to experience however you want to experience it. If you want to just lay down on the bed facing the pillow and just go while I give you a really good take, a really strong opinion on the Call of Duty campaigns, well, you have found the podcast for you. We got a lot of news, and I want to apologize for last week's show where I uploaded the wrong episode of the podcast to last week's episode, and I did not correct it for a few days. So if you missed last week's, sorry. If you are going to re-listen to last week's now that it's a proper version, then listen to this one. Cool. That will probably not happen again. This week, we're probably looking at some of the last big games to come out this year. We have a scenario where stuff like the Game Awards doesn't even consider games that came out in December, and even games in late November don't get recognition. That's why we've seen a scenario where Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is getting recognized this year instead of last year, despite being a 2024 game. And honestly, I think you could have taken out one of the games nominated for Game of the Year this year and replaced it with something like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Unfortunately, that's not how the Game Awards work, because the Game Awards really is something that is voted on and nominated by people who have something of a select memory, right? There is a fair amount of recency bias that goes with stuff like the Game Awards. And listen, I've ranted, I've raved, I've complained about the Game Awards in the past. And trust me, there are a lot of things that you can criticize the Game Awards for, but at some point we are trying to push on a machine that is, as of right now, too big to fail. They keep doing bigger and bigger numbers with every year in terms of viewership, sponsorship, stuff like that. But I don't come to the Game Awards to celebrate the year in gaming, because I don't think I like the way they celebrate the games that came out that year. It's just not for me in terms of like, oh wow, I was really blown away by how they recognized Ghost of Yote for XYZ, things like that. It's just, and I will say that even if I loved a lot of the games on the Game of the Year list or whatever, I would still feel the same way, because they don't actually get the props I feel like they deserve. It's more like in between ads for DoorDash and Genshin Impact. It's like, oh, here's another Game Award, and then back to fucking talking about Hideo Kojima or, the next big game coming to Xbox Game Pass or whatever. So it's just, I know that maybe sounds cynical in a world where this is gaming's biggest night to celebrate itself, give itself a pat on the back, something that I don't genuinely oppose, because I have enjoyed the Oscars every now and then. But these games are not going to make it for Game of the Year for maybe a variety of reasons, but one of them will be that they just simply came out too late in the year. We're going to talk about reviews for Marvel Cosmic Invasion as well as Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Marvel Cosmic Invasion, if you don't know, is the new side-scrolling beat-em-up brawler starring Marvel people. I figured that part might be like self-explanatory, but yeah, it is a throwback style brawler beat 'em up. If you played the Ninja Turtles arcade game or the Simpsons arcade game or the X-Men arcade game or whatever, you've probably played something like this that, you know, on an arcade. I'm guessing that, like, you know, for a lot of people, probably the last time they were putting out Double Dragon games and River City Girls games and all of this stuff. But my feeling is people's strongest Battletoads. Who didn't play that fucking Battletoads game that came out? And the point is when I think about these sorts of games, there is this part of me that's like, hey, these are probably games you haven't played in a while. So results may vary on how you feel about it. Long story short, Marvel Cosmic Invasion out now. It actually came out on the 1st, out on PlayStation 5, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and the personal computer. It is currently sitting at an 81% top critic average, with 83% of critics recommending it. And that is out of a grand total of 71 critic reviews. Let's take a look here at the list. Game Rant giving it an 8 out of 10, saying Marvel Cosmic Invasion soars with stunning visuals, slick beat-em-up gameplay, and an inventive lineup of diverse comic book characters. IGN 7 out of 10, saying the stages and enemies aren't going to blow you away, but Marvel Cosmic Invasion's tag team action still has the juice. PC Gamer 72 out of 100, saying perhaps the beat 'em up genre's best ever roster of playable characters, let down by an inconsistent campaign that wears out too fast. Games Radar Plus giving it a 4 out of 5, saying you can play as any character duo you like in any level. However, each level has an intended duo. GameSpot 7 out of 10, saying exciting side-scrolling action and a varied roster of heroes come together in a fun retro romp. Destructoid 7.5 out of 10, saying Marvel Cosmic Invasion is an entertaining, nostalgia-fueled retro beat-em-up romp that ends way too quickly and doesn't have a ton of playable content outside of its core game modes. What do you think about that? What do you think about the reviews for Marvel Cosmic Invasion? I can tell you what I think about the reviews for Marvel Cosmic Invasion. However, I will clarify that I've only played one level of this game so far. I briefly messed around with the demo, which was also the first level of the game. So I've played through the first level twice, because I played through it once as one set of characters, and I played through it again as another set of characters. And I mean, if there is an intended duo of characters you should play as per level, I didn't necessarily get that idea. However, I got the idea that there was at least one character that I tried that I really didn't enjoy playing as. I thought their moveset, their attacks, and all that stuff kind of sucked. But let's back things up. Let's back that thing up for just a moment and talk about what is Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Like I said, it is a retro, throwback-inspired 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up where you play as Marvel heroes. There is a cast of characters in the game to choose from. Some are locked, some are unlocked at the start of the game, and it is also a tag system. So you pick two characters that you can play as kind of at any given time throughout the level. What that means is you can, say, let's say you pick Iron Man and Rocket Raccoon. You can, just run through the level as Iron Man if you want, and you can call on your companion character, your tag character, such as Rocket Raccoon or Spider-Man or whoever, and you can have them kind of in a God of War Atreus style thing of like, I'm going to hit this button and they're going to come in and do a bunch of attacks, but I don't like necessarily play as them. They just come in and do some attacks. Or I can actually switch to the other character and fully control them as well, and then use the character that I started out as for those, kind of guest appearances, those tag moves and stuff like that. And you can mix and match, your super ability with their super ability and do a variety of things to, take advantage of combining powers to get through levels relatively easily with a variety of characters. I played as, I believe you play as Nova as part of the, I'm pretty sure it's Nova as part of the tutorial. Then you switch to some lady who has a sword that I had never heard of, which is fine, but I didn't know who she was. And then when you get into the level, I first started things off playing as Wolverine and Rocket Raccoon. I don't know if you know this, but Wolverine is one of the best video game characters of all time. As far as I'm concerned, is a tremendous character to play as no matter what the action calls for. And he's great in this, slicing through enemies, your, healing factor and all that stuff. Really cool. The character I didn't enjoy playing as was Rocket Raccoon. I think his, melee his melee attacks really suck. And I think that ranged weaponry doesn't really work that well in the context of a beat 'em up brawler. So he was just someone that I really didn't enjoy playing as. I beat the first level. Then I said, let's run it back. And then I picked Black Panther and I believe it's Cosmic Ghost Rider. I don't know what the difference is between regular ass Ghost. That's his legal name, regular ass Ghost Rider, and Cosmic Ghost Rider. But like I said, I played as both of those. I think Black Panther's a ton of fun to play as. He does have some throwing knives, which I find to be like, for me, if I'm going to play one of these brawlers, it's going to be, I kind of want a character that is mostly melee with a little bit of range to keep enemies away from me, or to keep that combo going if I'm too far away to, kill the next enemy or whatever the case may be. Ghost Rider was fun too, his whip and, things like that. But it's a nice looking game. I think it's got a great sense of style. I think for me, the game itself falls flat just by being one of these sorts of beat 'em up brawlers. I just think in a world where I was pumping quarters into this thing, trying to, survive as long as I can, get as far into the campaign as I can. Yeah, I could see, there being a little bit more of a carrot on the stick in terms of an investment for me to see this through, regardless of how I felt about the gameplay. But as a standalone game that I played on Game Pass, I think it's like 30, 40, like 30 something bucks if you wanted to buy it. I think it's just a scenario where those types of beat 'em up brawlers are just too thin and just too narrow, both on a surface level, but also deeper in terms of additional mechanics, unlocks. Like, what can you really do in these games to really change up a lot of the formula? There is an upgrade system in the kind of a progression system in the game. Upgrades kind of generous, but the progression system pretty much is you just earn XP while you are playing through the level, and then you will level up at the end of the level. Each character, I think, goes to level 10, and they get different abilities and passives, and like, if you hit this level, Wolverine will recharge his health even faster and things like that. And like, that's neat. That's cool. That would allow you to, get through maybe wanting to see every character leveled up. But I only played like maybe 2 levels or so. Maybe I think I might have played through the first level 3 times now that I think about it. I might have picked Wolverine again. I forget. But like my Wolverine is now like level like 3 or 4 out of 10. It doesn't seem like it's going to take that long to upgrade that character. And then when you think about it from the perspective of, maybe a relatively shorter campaign, it just seems like there's not a lot of meat on the bones for this game in terms of additional content and carrot on the stick sort of thing. But also, I just don't think that these sorts of beat 'em up brawlers have a lot of meat on the bones mechanically, combat wise. So I'll tell you, like, thank God, like I got it on Game Pass. I'm not saying this game is bad. It's just, I think you would really have to love either Marvel, these sorts of games, or you really enjoy faux throwback sorts of games of this ilk, regardless of what type of genre it is. Not a bad game, but when I look at these reviews, kind of in line with what I thought, but or how I feel. But again, I haven't played too much into it. I might chip away at it, but it's just like, it's not that it's not for me. It's just that it's hard to justify putting what little time this game requires in investment into it when I could be doing other things. Let's talk about Metroid Prime 4 on the other hand. This came out, this is coming out tomorrow, December 4th, on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, courtesy of your friends and mine at Retro Studios, put out by Nintendo. This is Nintendo's last big game of the year, currently sitting at an 81 top critic average and an 84% of critics recommending the game. And this is based on 43 critical reviews. IGN giving it an 8 out of 10, saying Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is an excellent, if relatively uneven, revival that reaches heights worthy of the Metroid name in its best moments. Eurogamer 3 out of 5, saying Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is enjoyable enough and has glimpses of vintage Metroid shining through, but this game could and should have been so much more. Games Radar Plus giving it a 3.5 out of 5, saying within its actual levels, Metroid Prime 4 is triumphant. GameSpot 8 out of 10, saying high highs and middling lows make Metroid Prime 4's return uneven. And then a little website called GiantBomb.com, Dan Reichert, GiantBomb.com, giving this game a 5 out of 5, saying after a rocky development history, Samus finally lands on the Switch 2 with one of her greatest adventures. Video Games Chronicles, Andy Robinson over at Video Games Chronicles, as always, a shout out to Video Games Chronicles, saying Metroid Prime 4 Beyond feels like a game stuck between two worlds. When it's emulating the series past, Beyond is entertaining if a overly conservative sequel. However, as the shadowy corridors make way for open world fetch quests and Halo-style expeditions with AI components, it's left feeling like a diluted experience that doesn't really fully deliver on the spirit of earlier entries. Wow. I've never been a Metroid guy. I've never actually played through any Metroid game ever. Like, not Super Metroid, not Metroid Prime, whatever, the first one, not 4. Like, well, the 4's not out yet, but I've never played a Metroid game. I know that Metroid Prime are first-person shooters, like kind of action-adventure first-person shooters. And that sounds awesome. I have never played one. I was very, very curious about this game, but I also think given, and you know, kind of Dan Reichert brings this up in his review, like the rocky development, I think, can be seen in the game, right? It's this thing of like, there's kind of wear and tear on what could have been a fresh idea that has now been overdone or is undercooked, despite being something that we're used to for a while now. And the reviews for this also kind of don't super surprise me either. I think, not that I think Dan or anyone at Giant Bomb is hyperbolic in their coverage of video games, but you know, that is the highest review that I see, or one of the highest reviews that I see on this list from a source that I have heard of. Not saying that these other people don't write good reviews or anything like that, but yeah. So I mean, you know, I'm curious about Metroid Prime 4. This doesn't seem like a game I need to jump into immediately. Maybe it's a scenario where I go play Metroid Prime 1 because that was re-released on Switch and Switch 2. Maybe I could get my feet wet with a little bit of Metroid Prime, but Metroid Prime 4 seems neat. This was a game that I did have my eyes on because it was, well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to have my eyes open for a lot of these games if they're big Switch 2 games from Nintendo. I know it's also coming out on Switch 1, but yeah, like I fully suspect that, you know, Nintendo could put out just about anything and I would be interested in it if it is a big first party Switch 2 game. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we got some news. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. Let's sit down right here, right now, and talk about some more gaming news. What do you say? We've talked about, you know, the announcement that Saudi Arabia is going to be owning EA with the help of a consortium of other companies. News has come out maybe redefining what that consortium is going to be doing in terms of their share of the company. I'm getting this news from videogameschronicle.com. As always, shout out to videogameschronicle.com. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund will own 93% of EA after proposed buyout, with the rest of the consortium taking a much smaller share. It's reportedly considered unusual for a sovereign wealth fund to take such a percentage, but here we are. When EA confirmed in September that it was to be acquired by a group of private investors, the exact breakdown of how much each investor would own wasn't confirmed. It was simply confirmed that the company would be acquired by an investor consortium comprised of the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners in a transaction valued at $55 billion. Now, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, a new filing has been listed which shows that the Public Investment Fund, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, will own 93.4% of the company should the acquisition be approved. Silver Lake Partners, an investment fund run by U.S. global private equity firm based in Silicon Valley, will own 5.5% of the shares, according to the filing. And Affinity Partners, an American investment firm formed by Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, which mainly focuses on investing in U.S. and Israeli companies, with most of its funding coming from the Saudi Arabian government, will own 1.1%. As a result of this, the funding of the deal will most entirely have to be covered by the Public Investment Fund, which makes sense because they're also funding Affinity Partners, Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner's investment firm. With the Wall Street Journal estimating it'll have to output about $29 billion to reflect its final ownership stake. Now, the publication notes, this is from Wall Street Journal, that it's unusual for sovereign wealth funds to own such a majority when they're part of a consortium. Usually, private equity firms have a larger investment because they're more experienced in making deals and running businesses, while sovereign wealth funds typically ride on the coattails as minority investors. The deal, which is set to be the largest ever leveraged buyout if it's approved by shareholders, is being described as a large financial bet for Saudi Arabia at a time when finances are starting to become strained. As the Wall Street Journal explains, the Public Investment Fund may be a $1 trillion fund, but it's been stretched by a number of commitments, including a number of extremely expensive mega projects, such as a new future city called Neom and numerous new stadiums for the 2034 FIFA World Cup. Last month, the New York Times reported that the Public Investment Fund could be set to close its wallet to new investments for the time being due to several projects that are in financial distress, according to 11 people briefed on its operations. Those projects include Neom, a vast region and ski resort featuring robot workers, a coffee chain with one shop so far, a cruise line with one ship, and an electric vehicle startup that has yet to deliver a single car. In recent years, Saudi Arabia officials have said its investments in the games industry will help to modernize the kingdom, but they have come with negative fallouts due to the country's highly criticized human rights abuse. Notably, the Crown Prince has been accused by U.S. intelligence of ordering the brutal murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The country also has a historically cracked down view on female activists and LGBTQI plus rights, with legal repercussions for LGBTQI plus individuals, including imprisonment, fines, or the death penalty, according to Amnesty International. I just want to say congratulations to EA and all their future success. This seems like a wonderful idea and not a short-term thing that might just blow up in everyone's face. Let's move on. Let's talk about Steam machines. Steam machines. Steam machines. You know Steam machines. But do you know how much they're going to cost? Now, this is a larger story, but the PC hardware component space is really crazy right now. RAM sticks have almost quadrupled in price as of late. there are companies that are getting out of the business of certain manufacturing components. Getting out of certain component businesses and only manufacturing for AI data centers, AI related hardware, and no longer producing consumer goods. This probably also means bad things for people who are looking to eventually buy a PlayStation 6 down the road, or a new Xbox, or whatever. This isn't just about Steam machines. This isn't just about upgrading your current PC. It's going to be probably bad all around. If you are a company that didn't already buy up large amounts of DDR4 or DDR5 RAM chips and NVMe drives and all of this stuff, it's probably going to get really bad. But I'm going to try to just focus on the Steam machine for now and what people's expectations are for the price. And here's what we think we know. The Steam machines could cost around $700 build analysts for these builds are beginning to estimate. Roughly $699 USD if there are no changes in the market. If there are no changes in the market being the biggest thing about all of this, because like I said, you can look at here. I'm going to go to Camel. If you never use Camel, it is a great place to look up price comparisons for stuff on Amazon and whatnot. And I'm going to type in DDR5 RAM. And I'm going to type in 64 gigs of DDR5 RAM. Okay. So 60 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. You can get two 32 gigabyte sticks. They're 5600 megahertz. I think it's megahertz. It doesn't matter. So like I said, it's 2 times 32. These are the Corsair Vengeance, and it is $1,047. Oh, sorry, $1,047. RAM right now, you're looking at more than a PlayStation 5 Pro just for 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. If you've been thinking about this for a while, I got bad news for you, because this is crazy. These prices. This is Canadian what I'm looking at. DDR5, 64 gigabytes of RAM, $1,047. If I type this history into a price checker website like Camel, I'm going to show you something here. No. Give me this. Come on. Let's see if I can just... It's hard to search for stuff on this website, which probably how they get you. Okay, so I'm going to click on this price. And I'm going to go the last 6 months. 6 months ago, fun fact, 6 months ago on Amazon, that same 64 gigabyte DDR5 RAM was $204.24. When we talk about quadrupling, I was not fucking joking here. It is insane. Absolutely insane what has happened. A year ago, it was pretty much hovering around that same 204 at the lowest ever price. And that was back in July when it was at the lowest ever price in the last year. In case you're wondering how bad this shit has gotten, $1,047 for 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. So what does that mean for the Steam machine? Probably not great unless Valve did go buy up all of its RAM and components and they have a stockpile, but this stuff is going to get way worse before it gets any better. So if you have a if you have a Switch 2, this isn't even, I guess we're moving on from this being a story about Steam machines now that I've just broken down more or less what's going on here. And that's just DDR5 RAM. We're not even talking graphics cards. We're not talking SSD or NVMe. We're not talking almost any of that other storage related or component related stuff. I'm just talking about just RAM alone. If you have a PlayStation 5, PS5 Pro, Xbox Series X and S, Switch 1 or 2, or a PC that currently works, you better hug that thing tight, tuck it in good night, kiss it, take care of it, because this shit is wild when it comes to pricing right about now. I think you know what this means for the Steam machine. $700 seems like a goddamn steal at this point, looking at the prices of a lot of things. But we'll see when they finally announce the price for this stuff. Well, the good news is that if you do have a hard drive that you're trying to squeeze blood from a stone, I have good news. Helldivers 2's PC install size is dropping by more than 80% after just 2 months. Just 2 months after Arrowhead said that HDD's use made it difficult. Basically saying that traditional mechanical hard disk drives make it harder to condense the size because of loading issues and things like that. What they were able to do is take 154 gigabytes of the PC install size for Helldivers 2, bring that down to 23 gigabytes. I think that's pretty fantastic. There is a lengthy blog post explaining like how they were able to do it and all of this stuff and the difference between the console versions and the PC versions. But basically all you really need to know is that at one point, the PC version of Helldivers 2 was 154 gigabytes and has been reduced to just 23. Do you like Dead Rising? It's been a while since we got a new one, and I'm not talking about the remaster of the old one that we got not that long ago. I'm talking about the next great game in the Dead Rising series. Perhaps a follow-up to Dead Rising 4, who can say? What we do know is that Capcom is reportedly working on a new Dead Rising sequel starring Frank West. The zombie action game did receive a remaster last year. We just talked about that. According to a new report by MP First, which Video Games Chronicles can partially corroborate via their own sources, it's claimed that an in-development zombie action sequel will also see the return of original protagonist Frank West. The project in question won't be a remaster or remake, but a new entry in the series, the publication claims. It said that the new Dead Rising game will see Frank West head to Hollywood with action primarily taking place within a massive enclosed movie studio lot where the game's main villain forces Frank and other survivors into various trials, all in the pursuit of filming his perfect movie. Now, the timing aligns with the recent remaster of the original Dead Rising game, which was released last year with improved visuals, revamped controls, and quality of life improvements. Video Games Chronicles Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster Review called the remaster the perfect setup for a new sequel. Capcom has said that it's working on reactivating dormant IPs following the announcement of Onimusha and Okami sequels last year. It also asked fans of what franchises they wanted to see return via a survey. Now, when I think about zombies in Hollywood, the first thing that comes to my mind is a little game called Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 is set on the island. It's not actually an island. I don't know why they called it Dead Island 2 if it's set in Los Angeles. Sorry, Hell A. That's what they call it. Hell A. Get it? Isn't that funny? Anyways, Dead Rising 2 is a zombie action game that takes place in Los Angeles that, flirts with the idea of Hollywood and actors and actresses and starlets and all of that fun stuff. But it more focuses on like the suburbs of LA and the Hollywood Hills and stuff like that. It's less about your Hollywood backlot business. That being said, if you don't know Dead Rising, it is a over the top, kind of open world zombie action game. The first game took place in a mall. So you would run around the different stores and, oh, I went to the sporting goods store and I found boxing gloves. I'm going to use the boxing gloves to beat up the zombies. And then, oh, I ran out of health. So I ran to the food court and I found a burger and I ate a burger and then I fought more zombies and all that stuff. The second game takes place in a, like a fake Las Vegas, which is funny because then you can like pick up the craps and the roulette stuff and hit that stuff with hit zombies with that sort of stuff. Dead Rising is fun. My only problem is I think those games tend to be a little difficult. They tend to be a little dense in the way you have to balance the time mechanics. The game is kind of running time in the background, meaning you only have so much time to do a lot of the things you want to do. They eventually removed that in Dead Rising 4, which took place back in kind of the outside town that the first game took place in. It's also a Christmas game if you're looking for a Christmas video game. Dead Rising 4 is a Christmas game. I know I got a friend of mine who just loves the Dead Rising games. Played through that remaster, really enjoyed it. Hearing this and then maybe going back to their roots to some extent with or I guess returning to their return to the roots, or keeping on with kind of the tried and true nature of something like Dead Rising, I think is very exciting for a lot of people. Again, I just never loved the time constraints. I know that's a big component of the game, but I'm thinking maybe during Christmas time I might fire up Dead Rising 4. I know that it's not anybody's favorite Dead Rising game, but it's at least the game that I can run around and fuck around in and not worry about, oh, this person died or I ran out of time or I didn't have the whatever. So that being said, I think a Hollywood, big studio where you got different movie props and movie sets, and now we're in a fake Wild West, and now we're in fake outer space, and now we're in fake military place or whatever. I think that is a really great location for a Dead Rising. Dead Rising is one of those things where like part of the appeal, at least to me, is the location of where are we going to put this? Are we going and actually Hitman is another great example of a game where it's like half the appeal is just seeing where they set the location and then what they do with the location once they've set the game. So I'll tell you right now, like I hope that this game is real. I hope it comes out. People really like that Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster game, going back to its roots. So that is my hope, is that this game, I think I'm more interested in it just appealing to fans than I am myself, because I know that what I liked about Dead Rising is maybe not always the thing that true hardcore fans care about. Like I said, I want the freedom to just fuck around without worrying about running out of time and the survivors dying and rescuing people on time and missions expiring. I get that the kind of the crux of Dead Rising is a mad dash of not only rescuing people and helping people and doing quests and doing missions, but also killing zombies in the process and making sure that you have a lot of orange juice on you so that you can revive yourself, heal yourself really quickly. Anyways, Capcom probably working on a new Dead Rising sequel starring Frank West. We'll hear more about it when we do, maybe at the Game Awards. That's the other thing. It's like maybe like some of these like news stories are going to be like, I don't know, maybe we'll finally hear about it at the Game Awards, because that seems like the next big place people would announce things at. Shovel Knight Studio Yacht Club Games. When I think about Shovel Knight, it's just such a massive indie game. Like it's just got to be one of the most, like, it's up there with like Hollow Knight is like one of the most popular indie games of all time. A game that saw spin-offs and all of this stuff, and Shovel Knight was appearing in other indie games, and it was just a massively popular thing. But I guess like Yacht Club hasn't had a big hit in a while, or at least they haven't like maybe put out a game in a while that was really for them to, well, I don't know, man. They put out, okay, so they put out Shovel Knight in 2014. Then they did an expansion for Shovel Knight in 2015, and then another expansion in 2017. And then they did a collection of the Shovel Knight games in 2017 called Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. And then they did Shovel Knight King of Cards in 2019, Shovel Knight Showdown in 2019, Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon which was co-developed with Vine in 2021, Shovel Knight Dig, which was co-developed with Nitrome in 2022, and now we finally have Mina the Hollower coming out in 2025. They've also published some games, Cyber Shadow and Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, according to Wikipedia. I guess the thing is that they've always just kind of put their eggs in the Shovel Knight basket, which must have, while obviously very profitable at one point in time, I'm assuming that the return on investment became lower and lower because Shovel Knight Studio, Yacht Club Games, is in a make or break mode and relying on its next game to be a success. If Mina the Hollower doesn't do well, the studio will, quote, need more money to survive, its co-founder said. Now, I'm just going to read you the Video Games Chronicle story. I kind of already broke some of this down, but we'll do it anyways. The studio, best known for Shovel Knight and its numerous expansions and spin-offs, was set to release its long-awaited game Mina the Hollower on October 31st before delaying it to an as-of-yet unannounced future date. Now, in an interview with Bloomberg, co-founder and director Sean Velasco says the game sales will play a big role in determining the future of the company, including whether there is one. Velasco says, it's make or break for sure. If we sold 500,000 copies, then we would be golden. If we sold even 200,000 copies, that would be really, really great. If we sold 100,000, that's not so good. Given that Shovel Knight has sold more than 3 million copies since its release, some believe that the studio's target for Mina the Hollower should be manageable. However, as marketing director Celia Schilling pointed out to the publication, your company is only as strong as your last game. The implication, then, is that if Mina the Hollower doesn't hit figures Shovel Knight is hoping to reach, it may potentially spell curtains for a studio which, according to the article, has already churned through most of its capital, downsized, and put a second project, which was a 3D Shovel Knight sequel, on hold. Velasco told the publication that it should the worst thing happen and Mina the Hollower not see strong sales, he still believes the studio can survive, saying if Mina flops will still be around. He then, however, reportedly quickly followed this by conceding that we would need more money. Mina the Hollower was originally announced in early 2022 with a Kickstarter campaign raising $1.2 million and an estimated December 2023 release. As the project continued to grow and scale, however, it has been heavily delayed, leading to the current situation 2 years later where the game currently still doesn't have a firm release date. What can you say about this other than, I don't know, you blew up the budget and project for this game and now feel like the writing is, like, I'm not saying they did this to themselves, but they sold a lot of Shovel Knight 3, or sold a lot of Shovel Knight, 3 million copies, roughly. I'm not saying they deserve the stress and the gun that they're under or any of that stuff, but it's really weird how they're basically like, hey, can you buy this game 500,000 times? We would really appreciate it. But hey, maybe the game will come out eventually and then people can buy it. We shall see. Speaking of a game that may come out one day and people will be able to buy it, Splinter Cell Remake has a new director and it's the same one who left 3 years ago. David Grivell was directing the remake but left Ubisoft in 2022. He is back now at the company, saying, today I am very, very happy to announce that I am rejoining Ubisoft Tirana as game director on the Splinter Cell remake. If you don't say Toronto like that, I don't know what to tell you. And I said it like that to emphasize that you got to say Tirana. Anyways, goes on to say it is a very special team and project to me. Now you might be wondering, what did he work on before? Previously having worked on Ghost Recon Future Soldier at Ubisoft Paris, before moving to Ubisoft Tirana to work on Splinter Cell Blacklist, Assassin's Creed Unity, and Far Cry 4, 5, and 6. Ubisoft officially confirmed in December of 2021 that it was working on a remake of Splinter Cell The stealth action game was first released in 2002 as an Xbox exclusive. Now, at the time, it said the game was being rebuilt in the Snowdrop engine, which also powers the Division, and is also being used to build Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora and the upcoming Star Wars game at the time, which would have been Star Wars Bounty Hunter, whatever the fuck that game's called. Anyways, saying, quote, to deliver new generation visuals and gameplay and dynamic lighting and shadows, the series is known for. I will say, even now, if you fire up the PS2 Xbox version of Splinter Cell, really gorgeous lighting in those games. They were not wrong. So remember, they said all of this in December of 2021. Then, in November of 2022, as part of the video game celebration for the game's 20th anniversary, Ubisoft shared concept art for the remake. Since then, we've seen nothing more from the game. It was discovered, however, that Ubisoft Tirana was looking to recruit a scriptwriter to update the game's original story for a modern day audience. Yeah, to make it woke. Anyways, I'm joking. That's not, don't listen to me. Here's the last thing we know. That the original 2002 version of Splinter Cell was added to GOG's preservation program, a venture designed to ensure the classic games remain playable on modern PCs forever, even after the developers have stopped supporting them. So, if you want to play old Splinter Cell, do I have the video game store for you? You go to GOG, you type in Splinter Cell. And there's just one. It's just the first game. Currently on sale for $5 Canadian. Does not seem to support controllers. So have fun playing it on keyboard and mouse. If that is, oh no, hold on. There is controller mapping. I just don't know how well it works. Anyways, we're going to close that, close this, and talk about another stealth action video game that could be coming back. Metal Gear's producer says he's undecided on the future of remakes and mentions that Metal Gear Solid 4 would be a real challenge. Konami is currently deciding what to do next with Metal Gear after doing the Metal Gear 1, 2, and 3 remaster collection, and then remaking Metal Gear Solid 3 as Metal Gear Solid Delta that came out earlier this year. The thing about Metal Gear Solid 4, if you don't know, is that it has never appeared on another game console besides the PlayStation 3. It has been locked to the PlayStation 3. No backwards compatibility, no PC release, no PS4 update, nothing. Metal Gear Solid 4, is unplayable if you do not have a PlayStation 3. It's also a very big game. A lot of cutscenes, like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of cutscenes. It's a big, massive game, which would make remaking it probably pretty difficult compared to a PS2 game like Metal Gear Solid 3, which saw the MGS Delta treatment. Well, let's continue on. Speaking to a Japanese publication, Real Sound, Okamura was asked what kind of titles we'll see from the Metal Gear series aside from the recently discussed MGS Master Collection Volume 2. Because like I said, Volume 1 was 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. No, sorry, hold on. It was Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, as well as Metal Gear Solid, and Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3. So there's a fair bit of Metal Gear in that collection if you really wanted to. The point is the quote given was, right now we're still in the stage of thinking about what to make next. Since Metal Gear has given us a chance to reach a new audience, I'd like to keep building on that momentum. Adding, that said, the actual content of what we'll make is still undecided. It could be another remake, or we might take on something entirely new. The Metal Gear series is practically a history of video games in itself, ranging from pixel art to film-like presentation, so the best way to remake or reinterpret each title differs greatly. He continued saying, "We have no intention to simply apply the same methodology we used for Metal Gear Solid Delta to every game. We want to determine the most suitable approach for each game. Many of the original staff had left, and the team had been resurrected, so we'd have to gather new people to finally get. We had to get new people together to get Metal Gear Solid Delta made. As a team, we're confident that we managed to preserve the appeal of the past title while achieving a level of quality that modern players can enjoy. At the moment, we're exploring concrete plans of what comes next." The producer was then specifically asked about the chance of a remake for Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots, the classic PS3 entry that has still not received a re-release, with the complexity of that console's hardware often cited as a reason. And the quote is, "The hardware at the time required some very unusual designs to get 3D performance out of the technology available. And Metal Gear Solid 4's code ended up being quite unconventional as well. Bringing it over today seems like it would be a real challenge." I think they probably just end up remaking that game. That's my guess, is they end up remaking it. I don't think they remaster it. I don't think they re-release it. I think if they're going to do this, they got to do it by just remaking it. Start from scratch, use it as a baseline. You can probably pull things like performances, maybe. I don't know how that stuff works. Contracts work, stuff like that. I'm not too sure, but I would say if you're going to do it, just do it and remake the entire game. Man, we got more news. I pulled so many news stories. Let's see here. Really quick one. Nintendo is acquiring Bandai Namco Singapore Studios. It'll be renamed to Nintendo Studios Singapore. This is been a bit of a hot streak for Nintendo, having purchased some other studios in the past. But Bandai Namco Studios Singapore was established in 2013 and has worked with Nintendo in the past, including contributing to the development of the Splatoon series. Now Nintendo has announced, subject to approval, it plans to acquire 80% of the studio's shares as of April 1st, 2026, with the remaining shares to be acquired after a certain period. According to Nintendo, the studio has long expertise in creating in-game art assets, which implies it will mainly continue to be a support studio once Nintendo acquires it. Other Nintendo-owned subsidiaries caused a stir last month when Nintendo released a pair of videos which turned out to be Pikmin animated shorts. These videos were the work of Nintendo Pictures, which used to be known as Dynamo Pictures until Nintendo acquired it in 2022 and renamed it to focus on the development of visual content utilizing Nintendo IP. Other than a pre-acquisition commitment to work on Death Stranding 2, Nintendo Pictures has only worked on Nintendo games since the 2022 takeover, including The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Super Mario RPG, and another code, Recollection. Other Nintendo-owned subsidiaries include 1UP Studios, which is formerly Brownie Brown, who helped with the design on Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Odyssey, Monolith Soft, which did Xenoblade, Next Level Games, Luigi's Mansion 3D, Nintendo Cube, which did Mario Party, and Retro Studios that did Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo on a very hot streak. I don't know if you can tell with the Switch 2 and the Switch 1, everything is coming up Nintendo as of right now. But you know what isn't coming up Nintendo, or isn't really coming up in any way, shape, or form? Destiny 2. The director of Destiny 2 says that the Edge of Fate expansion that came out earlier this year didn't appeal to players who stayed after the Final Shape. So the Final Shape was their expansion that came out after Lightborn. What the fuck was that game? The hell was that Destiny 2 expansion called? The one that was the basically the Final Shape came out after I had stopped playing Destiny. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. The history of these damn expansions. Okay. Lightfall. So I stopped playing Destiny 2 just after Lightfall came out. The Final Shape came out, and that was basically the conclusion of the story that was set up by Lightfall and all of that stuff. Then we had the Final Shape, which came out in 2024. The Edge of Fate So the Final Shape came out in 2024. The Edge of Fate came out this year, July 2025. And we have the new expansion Renegades, which is coming out in December. And it will be an expansion that includes content related to Star Wars. Which, by the way, that expansion is now out as of yesterday. Did that come out? How come I don't see people? Wait a minute. Okay, so this expansion came out yesterday. I'm going to go to Steam. Okay, well, I got to say, it's pretty sad that when I load up Steam, I don't even see... I know that there's like all these certain ways to like, oh, you can, like customize what you see on Steam and all that stuff, but like, dog, I ain't seeing shit about this game, man. I'm not seeing a fucking thing about... Unless I said, hey, Steam, don't show me this game anymore. Okay. So this came out yesterday. It currently has mixed reviews on Steam, by the way. And this is for the expansion for Renegades. Okay. Steam DB. And I want to see how many people are currently playing Destiny 2. And if we saw an uptick since the release of the game. Since the release of the expansion, excuse me. Okay, last 48 hours. Okay, so boy, oh boy. Tuesday, December 2nd, we had about 1,644 people playing Destiny 2 on Steam. That then shot up to 71,000, 70,000. It dropped down to 29,000. Currently, there are 51,000 people playing Destiny 2. There was still an all-time peak almost 3 years ago where 316,000 people were playing Destiny 2. But yeah, I don't know. That doesn't seem like amazing numbers, but also I don't know what I was expecting from Destiny 2 other than and that Renegades expansion, other than I just feel like nobody is fucking talking about this. Nobody. It's so crazy. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Yeah, okay. Apparently, Forbes 2 days ago, Forbes, the money people, said that Destiny 2 Renegades is a surprisingly good starting point for new players. I ended up with the Destiny 2 expansion. I forget which one. I want to say maybe it was the Final Shape. I think I ended up with the Final Shape DLC, and I was just like, fuck, I don't want this. How did I end up with this? Right, I don't... Okay, so I have the Final Shape, but I don't have... the Edge of Fate or the Renegades DLC, which is fine. I wasn't going to play the game anyways. However, for what it's worth, you can get... both DLCs for 40% off for $60 if that is your thing. It is certainly not mine. RIP Destiny 2. Anyways, long story short, the Destiny 2 director has said that the game's last expansion didn't deliver on what players wanted at a crucial time in the game's life. Like really slipping on that banana peel at the worst possible time. Following this, Bungie announced the start of an entirely new long-term story called the Fate Saga, which started with the release of Edge of Fate. The second expansion, Renegades, is coming out. It's out now. It is being inspired by Star Wars. According to director Tyson Green, the Fate Saga hasn't started as well as it could have because players weren't happy with what the Edge of Fate offered. In an interview with IGN, Green said the expansion didn't deliver on players' expectations at a crucial time when numerous players moved on to different games after the Final Shape brought a natural end to the 10-year storyline. Quote, the Final Shape brought things to a crescendo where it's a fantastic ending that tied off a lot of the threads. People were pleased and satisfied with what they played, and then the big downward spike in population came after. That happened because we ended the saga, so you get what you pay for, right? That wasn't the plan from the business perspective. We still want to keep making Destiny. We still have many stories to tell in this universe. There are still lots of things to do, and we have to keep building the game. Unfortunately, it was not gracefully managed, but we had to try something. Green explained that the Edge of Fate focused too much on grinding to reach a higher level, rather than providing players with more satisfying rewards. Quote, "We look at the problem that we had after the final shape and we said, we think there's a route here, which is leaning into more systems of pursuit, getting new tiers of gear and armor sets and power progression, and things like challenge customization." Tears for Gears is my new band. Quote, "I think we've been taught a bunch of hard lessons about what other players want, and there are really two kinds of live games. Those that listen to the players and respond, and those that don't. And we don't want to be a dead live game. We want to keep building Destiny. So we're listening to our players, and what our players are telling us is that they don't want to chase a simple number that goes up. They want real rewards." Green said, "The silver lining to this is that Bungie's decision to switch from releasing one large annual expansion a year to releasing two mid-sized ones instead gives the game a chance to adapt to player feedback quicker." Quote, "One of the advantages that a new release model gives us, which is 2 expansions a year, means you can experiment more within those individual expansions. You can try different things. So we saw what we wanted to do with the Space Western Revenge story, and we figured, let's do it in Renegades. Let's aim for this. So we took the idea of Star Wars as a total inspiration and built a Destiny expansion around it. That's kind of how we always do it. In this case, I think it comes through much more richly because it's being more deliberate with its influence and style, but it's still fundamentally a Destiny expansion." Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't sound like, none of that sounds like something that would bring me back. Like, I'm still kind of the mindset that, like, I think Bungie has treated its people incredibly poorly and there's been gross mismanagement within the company. I'm not just talking about the games. I'm talking about like the company itself. So to me, like, them putting out a slightly better Destiny 2 that is only looked at as slightly better because of the dog shit Destiny 2 they already put out doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I guess I could go back and always play the final shape, but like, then I have to remember what the fuck was happening in the story of Destiny. And I gotta be honest, as much as there's been cool individual story specific moments and things like that in Destiny, it has never been a big grand lore world that I've wanted to sink my teeth into, and them killing it and then bringing it back or doing whatever it is that they're doing does not fill me with a lot of hope. Also, if I go to the user reviews for Renegades, like I said, currently mixed, with 367 being positive reviews and 367 being positive, 254 being negative. Someone says that there's $300 worth of Star Wars items. I want to earn cool stuff instead of being bombarded with ads asking for my money. Someone else says that it felt like 70% of the story was pointless chores and yapping, had me wanting to play something else. Some people writing really long novels for their reviews. Great. You get a lightsaber in this. Yeah, all right. I don't know. I'm just going to shake my head. I'm also going to shake my head about the good folks over at Paradox and their recent release, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, because Paradox says that sales do not match our projections, with a $37 million write-down on the game. After numerous delays, the game was finally released on October 21st, but Paradox says an updated sales forecast made 30 days after the release suggests it won't hit the numbers it expected. You want to talk about a game? We want to talk about a studio that so poorly manages most things that it does. Paradox is up there. Like, people hate on Ubisoft and they hate on what, like, EA and Activision and all these companies. We do not give Paradox Interactive nearly enough shit, but c'est la vie. As a result, it's decided to make a non-cash write-down of $37.4 million, which means it's reducing the value it previously assigned to the money spent developing the game. The decision is an acknowledgement that the investment in the game's development was worth less than it thought it would be, and as a result of the write-down, only $40 million of the game's development costs will remain recognized as an asset on Paradox's balance sheet. The likely result of this will be a significant loss in the company's next financial results, which Paradox CEO Frederick Wester says is the fault of the publisher, not the developer, The Chinese Room, saying Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is a strong vampire fantasy, and we are pleased with the developers' work on the game. We had high expectations for a long time since we saw it was a good game with a strong IP in a genre with broad appeal. A month after release, we can sadly see that the sales do not match the projections, which necessitates the write-down. The responsibility lies fully with us as the publisher. The game is outside of our core areas. In hindsight, it is clear that this has made it difficult for us to gauge sales. Going forward, we focus our capital to our core segments, and at the same time, we'll evaluate how we best develop World of Darkness's strong brand and catalog in the future. World of Darkness being the larger universe of Vampire the Masquerade. Despite the game's slow start, Wester insists the game's continued post-launch development, which includes 2 expansions as part of its premium edition, will still be honored, saying our post-release plans remain firm. We will deliver updates, the promised expansions to the game in the coming year. Which is amazing because they can barely do post-release for some of their other games. I mean, Jesus Christ, what the fuck happened to City Skylines 2 Paradox? I know it's a different game, but like, it seems like Paradox can so barely put out like functional video games and then support them. Like they can't make the game good, and then they can't support that game when it comes out. I believe they just recently booted, I might have talked about this on last week's show, but I'm pretty sure Paradox recently got rid of the developer of City Skylines 2 and is now having another studio work on it. A game that is still like $70 new with $120 premium edition. They're selling DLC and all sorts of shit for the game. And City Skylines 2, man, that game fucking sucks. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know, and I certainly don't know what to tell you with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Other than, what did you think was going to happen? We're going to take a final break. When we come back, we're going to talk about games that I've been playing. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt, and I continue to play video games. At the top of the show, we talked about Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which I played a little bit of, and is really is really all I have to say about the game. It seems fine, but maybe not completely for me. Mess around a little bit with Call of Duty Black Ops 7. I kind of just slowly chip away at that game, playing some of the extraction mode, messing around a little bit with multiplayer, not like completely completely engaged with all of its systems. The Battle Pass hasn't even launched yet, so I don't really have like super like a lot of things to even like do in that game, even if I wanted to get deep into that game again or anything like that. But it's a game that I'll probably mess around with if I only have like an hour or so to play a game or something. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, oh, I don't have a lot of time. I'll mess around with it. Probably do the extraction shooter mode, dip out and whatnot. But last week, I believe I talked about me messing around with BioShock 2. And I started to think to myself, maybe I'm focusing too much on 2025 games. Maybe there's just too many recent games on my plate that just didn't do it for me. Maybe I need to take it back, kicking it old school sort of thing. And this is not necessarily an old game, really, but a game that I recently started getting back into is a little game called Deus Ex Mankind Divided. That is the 2016 release, the sequel to Deus Ex Human Revolution. If you don't know, Deus Ex Mankind Divided originally came out on PS4 and Xbox One and is a PC game as well. And it is a first person, stealth action RPG, very cyberpunk and sci-fi inspired and stuff like that. If you didn't play the first game, that's fine. It's a great game, but it's not, unless you have a PC or an old console, you ain't going to play it. So really, to me, this is probably the modern equivalent of the game to get. And so far, I have been enjoying my time with it. I really enjoyed that first game. I thought that first game was just awesome. As someone who never played the original Deus Ex games, like the old Deus Ex games, this to me was a kind of fun introductory into the franchise and stuff like that. The original Deus Ex, if I remember correctly, let me take a look here. When did original Deus Ex come out? Original Deus Ex came out in like 2000, so it's an old ass video game. Basically, how I would describe Deus Ex is, like I said, open, not open world, but open ended, kind of like a Hitman in terms of level size. And I would say Hitman in terms of level size, but also density and things like that. It's not an open world in the sense of something like a Fallout or a Outer Worlds or a Skyrim. This is more like, hey, this is a large facility or a large section of a city that you can run around in, and it's really about choice. It's about, hey, you have to get into this bank. Do you want to try to talk your way through the gate, talk your way through the guard at the bank? Do you want to sneak in? Do you want to go guns blazing? And if you try to talk to them, are you going to be able to find the key card that you need to prove to them that you're allowed in the bank, and all those sorts of things? And I think the thing that really kind of hit me playing through Deus Ex Mankind Divided is that despite it not being as big of a game as Fallout 4, not as open of a game as, Skyrim or something like that, it feels like I have more choice at my disposal. Yes, you could run around these massive open fields of Fallout with all these different guns and weapons and gadgets. But I feel like at the end of the day, that game eventually gives you very little choice in how you want to approach something. Whereas I feel like a game like Deus Ex, or especially a game like Hitman, especially those recent games, I feel like I have a lot more choice in how I want to approach stealth and how I want to approach what guns blazing even kind of looks like. So I don't have like a lot of super big thoughts on what's it like to play, like the story and the, of Deus Ex and Mankind Divided and all that stuff. But like, really, I think my big takeaway is, one, I'm enjoying that game. Still, I played it a little bit when it first came out, but I just bounced off it. I forget what I did. I was playing other games at the time, or I got distracted or whatever. Like, there's so many times I have the attention span of a squirrel or whatever. And it's just like, I like something and it's cool and I should play more of it. But then life gets in the way, other games get in the way. Like it just happens. And, to those of you that like maybe have the attention span of a squirrel like me or whatever the case may be, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you recognize that, like, hey, there are a lot of great games that I touched, wanted to play, but didn't finish. There's nothing wrong with that. The backlog will always be there for you. Anyways, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, a great game. I'm pretty early on, but I have been enjoying my time with it. And that's kind of been my big thing is actually playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I might chip away a little bit more at Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I might dig into more games in the backlog. One thing that I am looking to start doing, though, while on the topic of Fallout, is I would like to start a playthrough of Fallout 3. I think my plan is to start a playthrough of Fallout 3 relatively soon, either this week or next week, and we'll probably do it as a YouTube series. I don't know if I'm going to end up streaming a lot of Fallout 3, but my plan right now is to play Fallout 3 on the internet as a weekly thing. We're aiming for like that hour and a half, 2 hour long episodes and play through the entire game. Will we get to the DLC? Remains to be seen. When we did Fallout New Vegas earlier this year, I did not touch any of that DLC because I kind of had enough of the game by the time I was done with it, but we'll find out. No mods or anything like that, just whatever version I have, which is probably the Game of the Year version. Whatever I have is what I'm going to play, and that is the plan, is to start a playthrough of Fallout 3. They say war never changes. Let's see what it's like to play Fallout 3 all of these years later. If those videos come up next week, you'll hear more about it on the podcast and all of that stuff. Check YouTube as well if you're watching the YouTube version of the podcast, or if you are just looking to watch some videos, that stuff will be there as soon as I commit to the bit. That is going to do it for the podcast. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. That'll take you all the places you need to go. That is going to do it for the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out, watching with me, and we'll see you all next week. Take it easy.